welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. All right, everybody, here we go. We are off to another episode. Thank you for joining us. Today, we are speaking with OBGYN based out of Dallas, Texas. And he's passionate about Femtech and using technology to improve patient outcomes and experiences. I have so many questions prepared for you. Hold on to your seat. Brian Welsh, how you doing today, man?
Excellent, sir. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Very cool. So just for everybody out there, I mean, before we start recording this stuff, we speak just for a little bit. And in the couple of minutes that we chatted, I've got lots of questions to pull out and to get rocking and rolling here. But just kind of give everybody up to speed on where you're at and kind of like your journey so far. So OBGYN based out of Dallas. But you also told me that you've got like multiple other things that you're doing right now around medicine, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So I am an OBGYN. I have a private practice that I actually have reopened private practice. It's only been about a month now. But I do that 2.5 days a week. I work as an OBGYN laborist, which is just like in the hospital for moms that come in and labor and don't have a doc at the hospital or whatnot. At 2 different locations. One of those locations is also a residency program. So I train and teach residents. And then I work a half day a week at their clinic. So for Medicaid unfunded moms, the residents see them and I'm there to supervise. And then I currently work with 4 different women's health startups in various different avenues. 2 of them are tech companies. There's a radiology company I work with, and then a device company as well. So I spend about 2 to 4 hours every month with each of those groups.
Very cool. So like, to me, that sounds a lot of like focused in certain areas, kind of by design, doing things that you're passionate about. And I'd started off by saying, passionate about Femtech, and each one of these avenues feels like it gets into that direction. But Brian, before we got any further into that, tell me a little bit about why becoming a doctor was important for you, or practicing medicine was important for you.
Yeah. I actually, truth be told, and my friends all know this, I tried really hard to avoid it. My dad's actually a now retired, but OBGYN as well. And so, when I went into college, I kind of wanted to do my own thing because my dad and I are really close. And so I wanted to not just like follow what he did. And so, ended up, I actually majored in economics and wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And finally decided around my senior year, I remember my dad was like, why don't you just look at medicine and see? It fits your personality. And so I shadowed this orthopedic surgeon. I went to the University of Oklahoma. So I shadowed this orthopedic surgeon there in Norman. And I remember, I only shadowed him about once a month, but it was for about 6 to 8 months. But I saw some patients pre-op and post-op during that time. And the one that always sticks out to me is there was this guy that tore his rotator cuff, couldn't lift his child up over his head anymore.
Oh, wow.
And then I saw him after repair, and he told the doc, he was like, man, you have given me back this gift. I can play with I don't remember how old he was, whatever, 6-year-old son now. And I was like, I want that. Like, I want to be able to give people their life back. And so that's kind of what put me on to medicine. And then, as I'm sure you've heard from many people, you go in thinking you're going to do one thing and you rotate through a bunch of stuff and you end up doing something else. And I don't think I could do any other area of medicine right now than what I'm doing.
So yeah, now kind of like giving him his life back. Now you're on the front end of life, giving the life. I mean, in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's Brian. So you have a kid, right? You have one kid.
One daughter.
One daughter. And man, I'm just like in these conversations, I'm just remembering my journey. We have 2 children. My daughter's 8, she turns 9 in August, and my son is 10. And boy, the first one, and what you guys do, what you gentlemen and ladies do in that room is remarkable. our first experience was difficult because it was breach. There was lots of things that I don't know about happening there. I'm just praying for my wife and my child at the time. I didn't know if it was a daughter or a son, that they would be okay. And we're so like, my world is in your hands, literally, in this process. So I always tell everybody, thank you, but thank you for taking that journey and that path that you have, because I'm example of that. You know, our life is in your hands.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's obviously, it's a great privilege to be able to just assist people and walk them through, like, such a big moment in life. So it's definitely a privilege to be a part of that. I always tell people most of the time I don't actually do that much. Mom does all the work.
Yeah.
But it's definitely fun, and it's a privilege to be a part of that, And I mean, I've worked in a couple different locations, and even from my first job on the other side of the Dallas Metroplex, I mean, I have patients that I delivered 8 years ago that I'm still friends with and chat with. So it's definitely, like, I think it's one of a few fields of medicine that you get to, like, form this really cool bond with your patient.
Yeah. It's amazing. And then this is branched into some other things for you in medicine, but up to this point, say up to being or practicing as an OBGYN, what was the biggest challenge for you?
So prior to becoming an OBGYN?
Yeah. Yep.
It's a good question. Honestly, I think a big part of it that was hard for me was originally getting into med school was a little more difficult for me than I think a lot of people. And I think a big part of that was not knowing it's what I wanted to do. And I mean, to be honest, like, I didn't put in the effort to try to get into med school that you need to in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And so, I had to kind of backtrack and take some extra classes, and ended up doing a postgraduate training program at Tulane in New Orleans for 6 months, kind of specifically designed to get into med school. And so, getting in, I think because of that late decision, was a little more difficult than most, which can kind of be frustrating for sure. Yeah.
And, kind of relating my world, because I'm not a physician, so I always love relating the challenges to my world on the outside of kind of like, hey, pick your direction before you go to college kind of deal, right? What are you going to do? And for physicians, even more, where it can be even more niched to a particular passion or a drive for you. On the other end of the spectrum, Brian, if that was one of the biggest challenges for you, what's been the biggest opportunity?
It's interesting. I think that being someone that is doing this, I'm going to call it abnormal medicine track, right? I'm not your traditional, like, private practice. I'm not your traditional academic. I kind of have this hybrid model that took me a while, and I've slowly built for myself, but it fits who I am. But I think the biggest opportunity is that as someone that works with residents on a regular basis, and, for OBGYN, our residency program is 4 years. So I spend 4 years with these individuals, and getting the opportunity to, like, talk to them on outside of the medicine, right? Like, on a real level of, like, okay, what do you want your life to look like when you're 40, when you're 50? And kind of being able to teach and model and show, like, you don't have to do what, quote, traditional medicine says you have to do. You don't have to go work for a private practice and work 8 to 5, 4.5 days a week, and take call one night a week, and, do that till you're 65 and retire. Like, You don't have to do that. You can build whatever you want, however you want. It's going to take some work, and you're going to probably fall on your face a few times, which I've done. But you don't have to do what everyone, like, tells you have to do. And if you want to balance and spend more time with your family because that's more important to you, like, let's figure out how to set that up. So I think it's a great opportunity as someone that's kind of this weird hybrid person to show others that, like, this is possible for anyone.
And this hybrid scenario is kind of, I see it as a transition, not only in medicine, but kind of like leading up to COVID kind of pushed us all into this different track where now we get to create this path. For the listeners out there, can't see, I'm literally sitting in a room in an office in my home, of which, Brian, it looks like you're in your home as well too. So living this lifestyle by design, I think there are certain things that have pushed us into this path. And this hybrid that you've created here is, to me, I'm hearing lifestyle by design. It's by choice that you're doing this. And it's so cool that mentoring the residents as they're coming through is an opportunity that you get, because it just same way when I'm speaking with a young investor, real estate investor, and like the Terminix, the kid spraying Terminix yesterday came out to the house and he wants to know about real estate, right? He's 20 years old. And his first 3 things that come out of his mouth were just these conditioned things that he's the world basically has conditioned him to thinking about business credit and LLCs and like all of these things that they feel have to happen. It's like they don't.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to fit in that box. Right. So how did you find yourself, Brian? You maybe kind of stumbled into this, but was there anybody around you that kind of led you in that path to say, hey, Brian, you don't have to fit in this box, right? Because Dad probably fit in the box, right? Yeah. Retired OBGYN. He's the box guy, right?
For sure he was. And like I said, like that's not, if the box is for you, great. You know, it's there for a reason. And I know people that love that lifestyle. I think that, I mean, you know, there's a lot of like, I could talk about like podcasts I listen to and blogs I read and a bunch of books on like life and philosophy and stuff. But I think if you really want to start, like I can pinpoint, it's funny because he's a real estate guy. I can pinpoint like an exact conversation. So my first job was a traditional OBGYN job. And I love my partners. It was a great hospital. I was there for 3 years. And in that process, I met this guy, and I don't know if you may or may not have met him, but his name's Thomas Black. And he is a now retired ER physician. He used to be an ER physician, and he does multifamily, primarily syndicates that are set up mainly for medical people, physicians, dentists, nurses, et cetera, with the idea of allowing you to practice medicine on your terms, right? So if you can get enough money coming in from these various real estate investments, if you still want to work 5 days a week, great. If you want to work 2 days a week, you've got the other income to take care of it. But he wrote a book and it's in that, but I met him and was having coffee with him one morning, and I've been out of residency like 18 months, right? Like paying off loans, like not making, physician money yet. And he sat me down and I was kind of just asking him his story, and he said, I think it was his son, could be a daughter, but he said, when my kid was about 8 or 9, they were in a soccer league. And I went to one of their soccer games on a Saturday. And, ER physicians, it's all shift work. So you work every day of the week, but random days and whatever. And he said, I went to my kid's soccer game and they looked up at me and they said, Dad, what are you doing here?
Yeah. Ouch.
He's like, And he was like, to me, that was the moment of like, I need to change something. And then just getting to know him and like working through like his story. And he's always been like so kind to me. And I've had COVID messed up a job of mine, and like I've had some struggles with work and whatnot until I got to this point. And like just getting to know him, but that specific story, I mean, I was single at the time. I didn't even know my now wife. But I was like, okay, like I see what you're doing. And it just something clicked where I had this understanding of like, okay, not only do I not want that experience if I ever do have kids, but even if like I didn't have kids, it's like, I don't want to miss out on something else because I'm fitting in a box that I don't honestly care about the box.
Yeah.
So that was the specific moment for sure.
Very interesting. Thomas Black. Yeah. And in his kind of in the book and having coffee with him, almost feel like mentoring you. And there are quite a few off the top of my head that I can think of who are doing similar things. And Brian, I just kind of in our conversation before, the idea of, why would you want Brian Welsh to be on the Real Estate Mogul MD? Because how many houses do you own?
Yeah, I own 0 houses.
Right. So right. So 0 houses. that particular thing in real estate. But what we just touched on excites me because it's this opportunity path that you're on and how you've bumped in against other people. So if listeners are out there driving in their car or touring down the office building or whatever and say, hey, I've been thinking about this. So maybe there's that path forward and this idea of the book. Do you remember what the name of the book was that you read of Thomas Black?
Oh man, no. And if he hears this, he'll be mad at me.
We'll make sure not to tag Thomas Black on this one. Let me see. If I can help.
I can look online. I know his group is now called Napoli Capital, but
okay. Okay. Yeah, we'd have to. I can put it in the description here. We'll look it up.
Yeah.
But very interesting. The book itself, kind of like this transition, and we just started talking about real estate, and you mentioned syndication. So even though you don't own any real estate, have you invested in any real estate?
No, I'll just say no, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, indirectly, I think I have a teeny tiny amount in an office building, but it's more because it was like a finder's fee.
Right.
For another guy I know that does syndicates. I was like, hey, you should check out this building. And I ended up buying it. And so I got a small percentage, but I mean, it's significant.
So are you investing? You said that you're with a couple of other startups. Are you investing in those startups?
I mean, I take all of my work comes in equity.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so interesting.
I get it through that. And then, I mean, there's one also that I have directly invested into at this point. Yeah.
Nice.
And another one that, I mean, I'm good friends with the founder, and whenever she's ready to raise, I'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the reason why I asked that is, we work with a lot of financial advisors. I'm not a financial advisor, but we work with a lot of financial advisors who would say, if you have money to invest and you have a business to grow, that's where you're going to get the largest multiple back from your investment. So that's why I asked that. If that's not real estate, then where is it going? But you've talked about Femtech, and you have to explain to me I mean, I can guess with those two words put together what that is, but tell me a little bit about that, Brian.
Yeah, it's really exciting because and maybe it's because I'm on the inside, but it to me is like this rapidly growing area in medicine. But it's the basic idea is using technology in one form or another to improve some area of medicine for women. I mean, I say using technology. I mean, I don't know this. I would venture to say the vast majority are just various different apps that are, and most of them are very niche focused, not all of them, but a lot of them are very niche focused on a specific problem that women have. And this is an app that is going to try to help you with that problem. And a lot of it springs out of the fact, and I could give you a whole TED talk on this, but that women's healthcare in general has been under-researched and underfunded since the dawn of time. And people are finally starting to realize that. And so we have all of these apps coming up that are improving the funding. A lot of them are like pushing towards trying to get more actual like scientific research specific towards women. And they're just trying overall to improve the lives and give women, kind of back to my original thing, give women their lives back in whatever form or fashion that is. And so, like I said, there's a lot of them that are very, very, very niche specific. And then there's some that are much larger and are trying to address just overall health. But it's just the idea of using various technological platforms to help women's health.
Very cool. And then these startups that you're consulting with, they touch in on that kind of app world?
Yep. So two of them do. I said one of them's a device, so they don't.
Okay.
And then one of them's a radiology company, and so they don't really do much on that end of it either. But the other two are very specific technological platforms for women. Yeah.
And in your journey, like this passion that you have for Femtech and using the technology to improve patient outcomes, I can see that. But what are some ways that it will improve their experience?
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of improving outcomes, right? But I think it'll improve experiences, and not just in mine, but other apps that are out there. It's weird to think about, but I think a lot of them help women feel more heard about their specific problem. And so that's going to improve your experience. It allows you to kind of find people if it's one of these little niche apps that fit what you're looking for. And then just because of the way modern medicine is set up, a lot of these problems that we're trying to fix are things that insurance isn't necessarily going to reimburse a physician for appropriately. And so in order to fully spend the amount of time with the patient that you would want to as a physician, you're going to end up kind of losing money in the deal, which is fine every once in a while, but obviously you can't make a career out of that. And so it helps to more focus in on the specific issues and give women the amount of time that issue really deserves. And it helps also, I like the example I gave, the first one that I worked for that I'm still with is a company called Tune. It's TUUNE. And it's designed around picking which birth control works best for you as an individual. And, just kind of for you, the old method of doing it is a patient would come into the office and say, hey, I want birth control. We'd run through all the different general options, right? Pill, patch, IUD, et cetera. And if they want the pill, there's 80 to 100 formulations of the birth control pill. And honestly, most doctors probably know 3 or 4 really well. And you give
go-tos.
Yeah. You give one and you say, try this for a couple months and come back if you're not happy. And then if they don't like that one, you try again. And so what this app has done is we went through thousands of research articles on individual birth control pills or even individual components of birth control pills and created a matrix of, does this birth control pill help or hurt all the different side effects we see with birth control? Nausea, vomiting, depression, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. And does this specific thing help or hurt? And then the patient goes through about a 40-minute long survey, but just on their phone at home, that asks them, how important is nausea to you? How important is weight gain or whatever? And at the end, it spits out 3 or 4 birth control methods that are best suited for what they're doing based on the literature. And then the physician gets that report. And so now when the patient comes in and insurance is going to pay me for a 15 or 20-minute visit with this patient, I don't have to go through all the different options because I know that patient's already been presented that. I can just say, okay, this app has used these 3 choices. Let's talk about them. Mm-hmm. And go over just those specific 3 choices. And so it's giving physicians, it's taking away the quote busy work of the part of picking a birth control and allowing you and the patient to spend more time talking about the specifics that are important to them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It seems extremely, extremely helpful. The first thing that pops into my mind is then the challenge of keeping algorithms and advertisements out of it.
Right.
That seems like a challenge in itself, but yeah, I can see it. I mean, that's a huge piece. That's a huge piece of this.
Yeah. And, I think another thing that a lot of these apps are really good at doing is incorporating, various different back-end machine learnings and things because, like I said, there are close to 100 different types of birth control pills. There's research coming out about each one every month. There's no way the amount of data on just the birth control pill, a single physician can keep up with all of it. It's just too much information, much less keep up with all that, plus all the other stuff you have to do as an OBGYN. And so having a company that's sitting there continuously updating their algorithm with new research, takes that part out of me. It's like, okay, I know that this is an evidence-based choice for this patient. So it's, it helps you keep up with all the data that you really couldn't otherwise.
Yeah. Very interesting. So this book called The Passive Income Physician.
Yes.
That's the one, man. So if we were to kind of jump around and get back on this, and that's thankful to my technology and the old Google machine here, being able to pull that up on Amazon. This book, and you've probably talked about passive income investing, is if you have the equity in there and it's not a straight change for consulting time, right? There's your passive income. And as that grows, it grows.
Right.
What has kept you, or what are some of the real estate investment ideas that you've come across and been like, nope, not for me?
To be honest, I haven't had any that are, if I'm just full disclosure, it's just
please do. Yes.
The cost of entry is something that I'm just now getting up to being able to handle.
Right.
And so it's actually, investing with Thomas, is something that this year or next year I would like to be able to do.
Yeah.
I I had switched jobs right before COVID into another traditional private practice and opened up this office, and had been open for, I don't remember, 6 months, a year or something, and was trying to grow a private practice when COVID hit, and then started losing money every month because no patients were coming in.
Yeah.
So that's why I say when I fell flat on my face trying to redo my life, like that was it. It was COVID.
Yeah.
And it's taken a while to kind of rebuild and get back, on stable ground, so to speak. So there hasn't been a deal that I've said is like not for me. It's just been like, I don't have the disposable money to throw it in there yet.
Great. Disposable. I would say deployable. That way it's going out. I'm going to send some soldiers out, and I want them to come back in with some more of their friends, right?
You're right. That's a much better way of putting it.
Yes. So in this perspective too, this the cost barrier, right? And in my mind, I hear that. I come from a world where there's I started, real estate when I was sleeping on a couch and didn't have a job. There was that cost barrier was there for me as well too. There was just that box that I was telling you about exists everywhere. Oh, yeah. And I had found myself with opportunities outside this box. So the cost barrier was broken down. And just the same way too, Brian, it has not been sunshine and rainbows all the time, right? I've got a few scars on my face as well. But the cost of entry, that as a barrier in the syndication world can be a little overwhelming because to be an accredited investor, right? You have to have, I think it's like $1 million plus in liquid assets, investable assets, right? So that's a substantial hurdle to get over. And some of the other ones, I know I've never done a syndication myself, so I'm just speaking of the things that I've seen. You have some, we can get in for 100 or, some as small as 50,000. I think Grant Cardone's great about offering this to so many different people where you can get in. So it's just a different world, but that cost barrier is something that is there and keeps people from getting into there. So, well, hopefully that everything runs right. And if you do get into syndication, making sure that you're just as passionate as researching that, as you are with Femtech and providing the experience that patients deserve, right? And now back into the entrepreneurial aspect of it, that the falling on your face in the COVID piece, did that require you to pull out of any of your other investments in order to keep things rolling?
I hadn't really started all of this Femtech stuff has been since that point. Okay. So I wasn't with any of these companies at that point in time. I mean, I will say it required me to sell out some retirement and stuff just to help pay rent. Like a 401k. But yeah, I wasn't with any of these. This all is stuff. That was kind of the time period I sat down and was like, okay, this is traditional medicine. This is what I want to do with my life. How do I get here? And spent a lot of time figuring out what it was that I wanted to do. I knew when I set it out that this was going to be I'm not going to fix this overnight to get where I want to be. Yeah. So I'm still not even there. But I think that was the point that kind of started. If you go back to your other question of what started you on this journey, sure, the original line was from Tom Black, but then the thing that really flipped the switch of okay, let's get this in gear was losing money as a doctor, right? Writing checks to take call, and being okay, this is wrong. What do I want to be doing?
Yeah. Paying for a job. Yeah. That's the old, that's the not being a business person, but buying yourself a job. And even when the extenuating circumstances, right? The COVID situation happened for us, we had just went virtual when that happened in real estate acquisition. So we acquire nationwide virtually. Right. And when COVID hit, I had brought on a new acquisition person, and my company was growing at that time. So right as that happened, I onboarded an employee virtually. And that was kind of like, now I work from here. So everything is virtual now, you know, with our teams all around the world. So very interesting in how that changes and the challenges that create opportunity for you in this path. So and the idea of having to, cash in some of the 401k, which probably means you took a penalty too on something like that, right? Getting a disbursement.
Yep.
But ultimately, man, Brian, I give you kudos for that, because you did what you said you were going to do. You set out and you pushed in this direction, a little bit different than everybody else outside of the box. And you paid your bills, you got everything done, and you didn't quit. That's a huge piece. Something like this is that delayed gratification, Brian. And I know you've got to be feeling it at some point, right? This delayed gratification of like, okay, I put this in, I did this, it's going to work. I just got to keep my head down and keep pushing forward. Do you have any advice for the listeners out there who may be kind of in a similar situation right now for you, as you are, in that point where, man, I just got to keep my head down. I know this is what I want. How can we help them keep going?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's tough. I think that you definitely, like you said, sometimes you just have to put your head down and just keep going and kind of remind yourself of what you're looking for, right? Like I have this saying I call it medicine my way by 50. And that means when I'm 50, like whatever I want, if I want to quit, which I won't, because I love being an OBGYN, I can, if I want to work 2 days a week, that's what I'm going to do. So, I think that for me, having that, like, okay, this is what we're doing. And this is like how you get there doesn't even really matter. It's funny, like there's Elon Musk talk about like, and I know now he's like a hot topic, but before that, if you're going to set a goal, like set your goal. And for me, originally it was like, okay, by like 55, I should be, and then it was like, he says like, if you say 10 years, make it 5. So I backed that down to 50. But then I think also it's important, and you talk about like you having kids. I think if all you do is like put your head down and work and think about like this goal you have of where you want your life to be in 10 years, you're not going to get there. Like you've got to remember, that like, what are you like, for me, part of that is I want to be there for anything and everything my daughter does when she is, in 10 years from now. I don't want to miss anything now, but I definitely don't when she's older and can remember all of it. And so, but by the same token, it's like, what are you doing? Like, if you forget about that part today, then you're going to wake up in 10 years and sure, maybe you'll be at your goal, but like, what have you missed in that time? So I think it's so important to like step back and focus on the today frequently, right? Spend time with your kids, spend time with your friends. There's this, what's this? Tim Urban. So he's like a blogger. It's called Wait But Why. And he has this post that is one of the it's a famous blog. It's called The Tail End. And in pictorial form, he shows you like spending time with friends and family, right? And it's kind of like by the time you graduate from high school, and I don't remember the exact number, but you will have spent like 90 or 95% of all the time you are ever going to spend with your parents. And so the reverse of that is true too, right? Like when my daughter graduates high school, she will have spent 90% of the time she will ever spend with me. And so while yes, 10 years from now, I know where I want to be, it's this balance of also like, I want to be here today. And so I think if you get lost in either one of those, you can get off track. And so you have to be able to like have your long-term vision and push yourself to get there, but also like remember why you're doing it, And so I think constantly remembering why you set that goal in the first place can help you focus to get there.
It's like want to ring a triangle, ding. Like that was awesome, man. There's so much in there to unpack. You said Tim Urban. Was that his name?
Yep.
Tim, what was the name of that blog? The famous blog?
The Tail End is the specific blog post.
Tail End. Very cool. So, there's this weird balance between a driven go-getter visionary person that's fits well with like the entrepreneurial perspective, right? And I fall in that world of my eyes are set on this goal that's out, And in my journey, Brian, in the last 5 to 7 years, through personal development and bumping against and speaking with and building relationships with people who have that experience of the moment is now. The moment is now. You have to be able to have your head down and blinders on to a certain point. But once you understand that we are exactly where we need to be in this moment, because this moment is all that we have. As long as we're pointed in the right direction, we know where we want to go. We're checking off these little things, but understanding that it's the journey and not the destination. And I think Jim Rohn says it best when he says it's who we become reaching these goals. It's not the goal itself. It's who we become when we get there. And we are only who we are becoming in this moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, heavy stuff, Brian. That was awesome, man. So if anybody wants to connect with you on Femtech, on patient experience, couple of these other startups that you had mentioned, Tune was one of them, Tuune. You've got Instagram out there, and I connected with you on Instagram. It's Dr.B Welsh. So it's Dr.BWELSH. On Instagram, if they want to talk a little more about Femtech or patient experience, some of this other stuff. Or if Mr. Thomas Black wants to send you some hate messages. No, I'm just messing with you, man. I would love to speak with Thomas Black as well, too. The name of that book was The Passive Income Physician, Surviving a Career Crisis by Expanding Net Worth. Sounds like a great gentleman. And man, it sounds like he's made a mark in your life to pass on, not only to you and your family, but to other physicians as around, as you mentor them through the residency programs that you guys have got going on.
Yeah, he's definitely a good dude.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I'm excited to have you have your time today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. What'd you think, man? How did that go? Do you think that we were going to have anything to talk about?
I think it went great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. If you get me on the topic of like women's health and Femtech, I can just go forever.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything that you would want to add to the listeners out there that may maybe brighten up their day or change their path or help them help others?
I would say kind of two things when you say that. The first one, as far as like keep you on your path, something I've started saying over and over, like to myself and others, is no one cares about building the life for you that you want. You've got to do it. And then, as far as helping others, like, I know it's kind of cheesy and it's what everyone's talking about, but like, just be nice to people about it, and it doesn't matter like what you're talking about or what walk of life you're in or anything. In my mind, there's never a reason not to just be nice to someone.
Yeah, I'll echo that. And that gives me goosebumps thinking about it. My biggest thing is, and I'm learning this every single day. I have such a hard time with incompetency. Yep. And I struggle with it. And it's something I know, and I want to catch myself and get better and better at it, but it's not my job to judge. So the thing that I'm working on is mercy. And in that regard, when I feel this thing, like you say, being nice, it just happens to me where I can feel like instant, the human nature aspect of it, where all I have to do is say mercy. And then I understand that it helps me be nice, you know? Mercy.
Yeah, for sure. That's
mercy.
Cool.
Have mercy. Have mercy. Well, Brian, man, I appreciate your time. It's been an absolute blast. If you guys have any questions for us, for Brian at all, if you have any questions that you would like to have addressed, topics for the show, you can reach out to us. You can email us at info@physicianwealthsystems.com. You can find that in the description as well, too. And man, we just appreciate your time, Brian. And we appreciate everybody out there listening today and downloading the podcast. We're excited to keep the show rolling and to hear from you. So send us a message and tune in next time.